Welcome back to our interview with Lisa Blakeney, owner of Vocation Validation in Pasadena, Maryland. This is part 2 of a series of 3 interviews with Ms. Blakeney. How did you share the information from your assessments with referral sources and clients?
With the clients, I share throughout the assessment. So no matter whatever assessment tool I'm giving them, I'm giving them feedback on how they did and what it means. Whether it's a high score, low score, or average score. For the referral source, I'm required to develop a report with recommendations within 14 business days from the last day of the assessment, a written report. That can be any format I want as long as it hits the criteria that we have to include in a report, the areas. And then I will send that written report to the referral source along with a copy for the client because I feel like the clients should have a copy of their own report because it's about their life. And they already know what's going to be in it because I've already gone over it with them. And I'll have attachments for job availability, any career information needed, any disability information. Well, they've received the assistive devices or technology they need to be able to perform at a more productive level. They've learned about resources and services that were available to them that they didn't know about before. They receive funding assistance to take vocational training programs either at a trade school or college. They receive tools or equipment or clothing or like safety-toed shoes or whatever they need to be able to perform the job that they want, job development, job placement. The outcome, the ultimate outcome is for the person to achieve their vocational goal, which may be to secure a volunteer position, to obtain a degree or certification, and to obtain and maintain a job.
So do you know how many of your clients have become employed or have gone on to post-secondary education?
I do not. I have not done the follow-up to do that, and I have in the past in other positions, but there are so many variables that can affect the outcome of the recommendations that I'm always leery about gathering that information because it may not have anything to do with my recommendations and the report results. It could be because something either happened with the client, they didn't follow through, could be funding sources not being available after the assessment. So that is something that I have not done.
Now, we were talking about how you share your information. I didn't hear you talk about using digital means in how you capture the information, both from the client and as you're doing the process. Do you ever do anything like that?
There are certain situations where I have taken photos and included them in the report. But other than that, I do not include, it's a written report.
And you use a word processor.
Yes. The Voc Rehab, who is my primary referral source, they have to have a hard copy. So it can be sent to them in a PDF format if they would like. Like for somebody who has a visual impairment and needs enlarged print, I will adjust for that if somebody asks for it in a different format, but typically it's just a hard copy.
What are some of the challenges you faced in synthesizing the assessment report information?
Probably the hardest thing, and this happens before we really get to the report, is just figuring out, how to match a vocational goal, a realistic vocational goal for somebody with maybe a lot of barriers to employment. So probably then the biggest barrier for the report writing process is making sure that you're recommending realistic recommendations that are in the person's geographic area, immediate geographic area. So you have to take into consideration if they're driving, walking, taking a bus, how many buses. And they're realistic goals. You can't recommend that somebody go to college if they only have a third grade reading level, even though they want to. So the hardest part is when, in those rare occasions, somebody just has so many barriers that employment is going to be hard, and sometimes you have to say that.
So what kind of resources do you rely on to help you inform you about those types of things? What do you go to for employment opportunities?
I use Indeed Jobs. I'll go to
Indeed.com?
Yeah, it's Indeed Jobs, but the website is Indeed.com.
Why do you use that?
How long?
Why?
Because it brings in all different job announcements from all of other kind of job search engines like Career Builders, Monster. It just brings everything into one place, and you can adjust it to how many miles away from an area, part-time, full-time. So it just makes it more geographically matched. I will go for job development. If somebody's interested in a position within a hospital, I'll go to that hospital website and look at the jobs that they have available there, and make sure that whatever the job requires matches with the client, their skills and potential. I go to community colleges, again, because there's a lot of positions, and if somebody wants to go to school and they need a part-time job, that makes it a little bit easier to work out. I'll go to specific employers' websites and look for jobs that way.
And what do you use any particular websites that help you as an evaluator with the work you're doing?
Job Accommodation Network is a fabulous site that will give, especially the client, additional information on accommodations or assistive devices that they can use to help them with being more productive. I use Career InfoNet, the Skills Profiler on Career InfoNet.
Why do you like that?
Because you can get transferable skills from there, and also I will use the videos or recommend the career videos that are on there. I'll recommend for clients to review those for additional career exploration. I go to the Yellow Pages online a lot for job search. If it's a particular line of work like auto mechanics, I'll pull up all the service areas, all the service companies in the area to use too. It depends on the person and their limitations or disabilities or specific,
How about for labor market information broadly?
We don't use broad. It has to be for the state of Maryland. It has to be local.
Do you use the ONET and those types of tools?
It's got to be local. That's too broad. So Maryland requires that it be local, because you can recommend something in Maryland and say, oh, well, the demand for that job in Maryland is fabulous, but the person lives in a rural area and it's not helpful to them. So that's why we don't use any broad.
Do you ever use the ONET for other things?
I have not that I can think of off the top of my head.
And do you use the Occupational Outlook Handbook?
I do. I use it primarily. I have a hard copy book that I use, but I will go to the internet again because of some of the offices that I go into. Wireless internet is not available, and sometimes the voc rehab offices' computers might not be up and running. So I always have a hard copy. I will print off things for clients from day 1 to day 2 because my assessments are 2 days typically. So from day 1 to day 2, I will, go to the office and I'll print off occupational information. And I also use the Maryland Judiciary Case Search website, and that is available in Maryland to look up somebody's public legal record, which is crucial. Virginia has a website that you can go to that's public, but you have to know what county they're in.
Why do you find that important?
Because if somebody has a legal record about writing scripts illegally and they want to work at a hospital, not a good match. Or if they have any child pornography or child abuse, again, there's certain stipulations to their probation, and they're not to come in contact with people under 18. So you need to know that information. You need to know their probation stipulations, and you need to know their history, because that could be a potential barrier for employment.
Do you have a report template that you use? A digital report template?
Yes, I do. And all I have in it, I make sure that I'm not like taking somebody's report and then going in and changing the information. I just have the categories that I know that I need to address. So interest, the academics, which assessment tools I use.
Just like a template with language, with embedded language that you use to introduce.
No.
Oh, okay. So it's only categories.
Because it's just the categories. Because when I find that sometimes if an evaluator uses embedded script, then it makes it look like a cookie cutter report, and you have to make sure that that you have the he's and she's right and all that kind of stuff. So I don't do that.
And you mentioned you have a assistant that works with your business.
I have a technician that I have trained that will come out with me when I need somebody to come out, because especially on day one, because that's the day that I'm doing intake interviews. So if I'm in a private room doing an intake interview with somebody, I can't observe the other individuals I have in the other room. So I have my technician, so she's able to administer assessments, take notes, and if I have somebody who needs one-on-one assistance, a reader and a scribe, then she's able to assist with that, or we both are.